Okay, Michael, we are on the Soldier Stories podcast. My name is Mark Ross, and I have with me this afternoon or early evening my brother Michael Manion. Michael, man, it's good to have you on the show, man. Thank you very much for coming in.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Uh, and Michael, just for illustration's sake, Michael is a retired Army vet, and you're the founder, right, of
Yes, sir.
your nonprofit, Healing Frontline Heroes. Is that correct?
Yes, Healing Frontline Heroes is actually our LLC, which provides the retreat services for the veterans and first responders who come and join us. Our nonprofit organization is called Arizona Warrior Assembly, and that's a veterans and first responder and anybody who wants to go down this path. And that we've formed a church in Arizona where folks can have access to these things. But I primarily operate in Mexico and outside of the country.
Hmm. Okay. And we'll talk about that Mexico part in a minute.
Yeah,
Because there's a big story behind that.
yeah.
So man, let's get this party started. Oh, before we do, during our interview, guys, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask of Brother Michael or myself during this time, please do so. If you have any questions for Michael, just hit us up on our Facebook chat, and I'll run it by him. So, with that being said, okay, so you served in the Army. How long did you serve in the Army, Michael?
My total military career spanned over 22 years, with active duty service and reserve service in there. So
Mm,
yeah, I did 22 total. I
mm,
actually had a stint where I was with the Air Force Reserve for a while too.
okay.
And so I served in the Army and the Air Force, and actually one of my deployments was with the Air Force. So yeah,
Good,
I've
good.
served a total of 22, and then after that, I've served 8 years of federal service within the VA and Department of Defense. So I have 30 years of federal, military and government service is what I'm at now. That's
Okay.
it's been great.
Cool, cool, cool. What was your? I'm gonna use the military term, but what was your MOS? What was your job?
When I initially went into the military, I went in. My initial enlistment was military police. So during my active duty tour, the first time, my active duty tour, I also went to military police investigator school. So I did a majority of my active duty time as a MPI type of guy and doing drug suppression and all that stuff down in Panama.
Mhm.
And uh, and then eventually I also picked up the secondary MOS of 79 Tango, which is the recruiter, recruiting and retention. That's where I retired out of. I did my last 6 years in the military out in the recruiting command.
Hmm. Okay. And one question I always ask for veterans, well, a few, and these are some, but what made you join the military, Michael?
Oh yeah, that's actually that's a good story. Funny, tragic, all that stuff at the same time,
Indeed.
right? But
Indeed.
I was the first kid from my family to go to college. I was raised in South Central Los Angeles, and I had the opportunity to go to college. And when I left and I was in college, I was a freshman, and I became a teenage father at 19 years old.
Mm,
And here I was, like I said, the first person in my family to ever even think about going to college. And I'm
yeah.
up there eating microwave burritos and top ramen half the time. I ain't ready to be nobody's daddy, right? So yeah, when my daughter was born, or when I knew that she was coming when I was 19,
Yeah.
um, it was just like, okay, well, man, I got to do something. The benefits and all that, even some little bit of pay, whatever. Okay, here we go. And
A
plenty of
man
folks
up,
in my
right?
family had already been there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I called my daddy. I said, Dad, I got a girl pregnant, Daddy. And
Oh.
he said, well, boy, time to go to work. he said, he said, he said, we sent you up there to learn something and go to school, man. And
Yeah.
you could have made a baby at home. It's time to go to work now, boy.
How about that? He ain't lying. He ain't
Yeah,
lying.
I mean, so that's honestly what happened, man. I had no intention of being in the military. I mean, when I was in high school, man, I think I took the ASVAB and made happy faces on that shit because they told us we would get the rest of the day off if we took it. I think I might have scored like a 10 on the ASVAB when I
You
took it
know?
into junior. Yeah, man, that was the furthest thing from my mind, to be honest,
Yeah.
but life changes and situations evolve, and I ended up going there. Funny story too, when the recruiter up there at my college, this was back in the early 90s, so they still even back then had access to be
Hmm.
able to get your ASVAB scores and stuff. So he called down to LA MEPS or something and got my ASVAB score after he talked to me
Hmm.
on the phone. And he said, "Yeah, man, you didn't score too well on that test, man. Are you sure you can pass this thing?" Like, I was like, "Bro, I promise you I can pass it. I was just messing around when I took it." And
Yeah.
he came and picked me up the next day, and I went and cut an 81 on that ASVAB test. So
Mm. Man,
yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, having a kid will change the whole trajectory of your life, man. You know what I'm
it
saying?
did. It really did. And for me too. Going to college was one thing, but just wanting to get away from the environment that I was reared in. In Southern California, and my family was all into a lot of different things. Gang banging and just whatever else was going on at the time in the 80s, and so you realize that you you leave home with one set of trauma and everything else in a bag over your shoulder. And then, you run off to the military, and guess what? They're gonna pack a whole another one for you that's full of a different type of flavor, right? So
Gee,
then
bro.
when you're done with all of it and you're just standing there as a grown ass man, you got
Mm.
these two big old sacks over your shoulder, one full of childhood trauma and BS, and then whatever you picked up when you was in the military. And unfortunately for us, there's not people there that are helping to unload those bags.
Come on
It's or the mechanisms and situations that they have in place to do it are not effective. They're not efficient. I mean, we don't even have to talk about how crazy the pill distribution business is at the VA. I mean, I've had guys come through my program that were on 16, 17 different pills. Some of them, and that was every day. The pill regimen, one to wake up, one to not feel bad, one to eat, just come on, man, we got to do better.
now.
And yeah, we
Yeah,
just got to do
yeah, yeah. So you did a glorious 20 years
yeah.
and you got out. How was the
Mhm.
transition for you, Mike? How was that transition from going from 20 years of whatever you were doing to being regular old Michael?
Well, man, there was, let me tell you this, my very first stint was active duty, and then I got out for a minute and I had joined the reserve. And then while I was in the reserve, that was when 9/11 hit. So we got called up I ended up having to do 24 months of active duty after 9/11. And then at that point, matched with the active duty I'd already done, I was close to 10 years. So I was like, you know what? Let me go on and figure out a way to stay in this military and catch this 20, and go from there. So I had some breaks in service. So I've had some civilian, life and everything like that. But then at the end of the military career in 2013, um, it was a tough transition, right? Because like you said, you spend 20 years in the military doing whatever it is you do there.
Yeah,
And then you come home and you're supposed to just act like everything's everything. You're supposed to go sit
correct,
at some job and, sit in some cubicle
correct.
and let somebody come in there and harass you about a bunch of shit that don't matter,
Man,
and it's like, man, what are we doing here?
what are we doing?
So with that, I just coupled with the things that I had seen, experienced, and processed while I was in the military, um, I ended up with a terrible bout of depression, man. I was for 3 years, man. I was lost in the sauce, man. And I mean that
Mm,
literally.
mm,
The
hmm.
sauce I was on that liquor really hard, and I
Yeah.
was damn near 300 pounds. I was 296 pounds 3 years after I retired from the military. And that was just how the pain and trauma and everything manifested on me. It felt like I was carrying the weight of the world. So that's exactly what happened physically. And
Mm, mm,
like I said, the very first time that I even got to the point where I was ready to ask for any type of help and everything, man, wow, I had already had a heart attack. I mean, everything was just it was crashing, and
gee.
I would have tried anything, just to feel better, just to feel anything, what I mean? Because now, mind you, during this time, I'm still getting up and going to work every single day, and handling stuff and wash, rinse, repeat, doing the robotic cycle of life, and go to work, take the kids to practice, pay the bills, blah 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 blah,
Yep.
making a hell of a lot of money, and life was seemingly good, but I was miserable on the
Mm,
inside, emotionally disconnected from myself and everything else, and
yes.
the military service, again, I got to say that I come up, from a family in Southern California during the 80s, and gang violence and all that kind of stuff was very prevalent in my life, and I understood what it was. So for me, violence was never the problem, in terms of, war and all that kind of stuff and the things that go along with it. I didn't have any problem with understanding what that was all about.
Hmm.
But what I didn't understand was the why, the systems behind it, and then, trying to reconcile the things that we actually did in these other countries, with these folks and everything else. And you realize that eventually, you know what, man, this is all about resources and somebody else's fight and some other system that we have no control over, and they're just using us as fodder.
Mm.
That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, fodder, I know during our initial conversation, brother, you talked about your years of working at the VA in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I know that during that time, your eyes were open to a lot of stuff.
Yes, that's what really did it, was
Chop
was
it up. Yeah.
getting, having my personal experience, right? And then
Hmm.
also observing the experiences of people around me, and then
Hmm.
also having the ability and the access to get into some of the true regulations, guidelines, and rules that run the place, because I was working in a place called Employee Labor Relations. So we
Hmm.
were in charge of like the disciplinary actions, the firings and the suspensions, and representing the agency in the MSPB court every time that the VA gets an EEO case and all that, which is more than you would ever know. I mean, they
Mm.
spend millions and millions of dollars on BS EO cases, every single year at the VA, right? But then again, a lot of those are valid too, right? Because there's corruption in everything that we do. But with that access to those rules and guidelines and everything, I was able to look up precedents and all kind of other stuff, and I came to the conclusion that this thing is working exactly how it's supposed to. Just
Mm.
like delay, deny, defend, right? So they delay your process, then they deny your claims, and then they defend the bullshit in some kind of rhetoric that has somebody waiting on help. So
Yeah.
how crazy is it that this person showed up to you with suicidal tendencies and everything else, and they're asking for help, but you're going to string them out on a process that could take damn near a year or better for somebody to even get some help, right?
Mm.
So that's now I'm not going to bash them all the way, because they have gotten better. Some of that process has gotten streamlined, but
Sure.
damn,
Sure.
man, it should have never been that convoluted to begin with.
Indeed.
When
Especially,
you
I
know what's
mean,
wrong with these guys, you know what's wrong with them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and we both can attest to that because we've seen it. You
Yep.
know, I
Hmm.
mean, I was telling you about uh, how mistreated I got during my
Yep.
one or two experiences. Up after I got released at the VA system, and during my time there, uh, uh, I encountered a lot of other veterans who also were mistreated, or what I'm saying, they just dropped the ball on these cats.
Yeah.
And man,
Absolutely, it happens. A lot of guys fall through the cracks, but then again, if you when you do subscribe to the services and everything that they've got, what do they got waiting on you? A death pill cocktail that's going to make you want to kill yourself 10 times more than when you started.
mm, yeah, and that's something that I think people really need to really understand. And it's
Yeah.
not just for veterans. This is for people, period, Michael.
Period.
Because
Period.
you talk
Yeah.
about these prescribed medications and these suicide cocktails, if you will, because bro, the side effects on these pills, man, is just as worse as
Yes. Yes.
it's
Yeah. I remember we talked about that the other day. It's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
watch one of those commercials, right? The one that
right.
sticks out to me, I remember it forever, is the Propecia. The pill you're supposed to take to help grow your hair back, right? But
Okay.
then if you go back and look at that commercial, the last 20 seconds of the side effects.
Man,
Okay, yeah, now you've got suicidal thoughts, you've got
man.
erectile dysfunction, you've got
Oh,
depression and loss of appetite, and all
mm,
you want to do is grow some hair back.
what's some hair? Hey, what the
Come
hell?
on, man.
And I told you, man, my one of my sisters was even suffering from suicidal ideations, brother, because she was taking some medication that was supposed to help her with something else.
Right.
And so the trap, the prescription trap is that they treat you with other medications to help with the side effects of the first pill that you taken. Now you got to deal with that, and the second pill. So they're going to prescribe you a third pill to help with the
Yes,
side effects of the second pill,
right. And they
and
just
so
start
on
stacking them.
and so on.
Right. They just keep stacking them, and then by the
Yeah,
time you know, well, you're just pill popping and you're numb all day,
man.
and it's just like life is just passing you by.
Yeah. And you a zombie at this point.
Yes. And you mentioned just how everybody needs to have this information, right? Because it's true. Like, okay, we say all the time, and we hear it out there that veterans are killing themselves at a rate of 22 to 50 per day, right? Something
Mhm.
like that. Because we know they lie about those numbers too. They lie about everything, right?
Mm.
So with that being said, if there's 50, if there's 20 to 50 American people in a subgroup that are killing themselves on a daily basis, what does that whole number look like? Right? The veterans represent a very, very small portion of the population. So the actual suicide rate in the United States of people killing themselves is unrelated to veterans. There's damn near 1,000 people a day killing themselves in this country. Facts.
And these just people,
Just
not
people.
veterans,
Right,
people.
just people out here trying to make it and function in these systems. The people are stressed the hell out, and everything costs way more than it should, and life is just crazy in a lot of situations. So what I'm saying is that this mental health crisis that we're facing is not just one for veterans. It's our whole country is crazy, man.
Indeed, indeed. I did a
And I'm not calling the people crazy. I'm saying the systems and everything. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I recently did a episode on my other platform. And
Mhm.
the question was, America, does America need therapy?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we talked about that particular aspect of uh, mental health in terms of medication, uh, the need for it, and
yeah,
the need to look deeper into the real issues that's really plaguing
yeah,
our country.
yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
the rabbit hole is deep. The rabbit hole is much deeper than we think.
Yes, it's much deeper than we've ever been allowed to believe that it is.
Indeed, indeed.
Right? It,
Yeah,
it's
man.
and there's some frustration with that. Even though uh, the healing journey has done me well, there's still some things that I'm genuinely a little bit angry about. And that speaks to these systems and everything, right? It's like it just doesn't make any sense. And it
Mhm.
never did to me. To be honest, none of this stuff ever made any sense to me. But now that I've been able to position myself to understand it better and really get the full download on the stuff, I understand now that it's not something that will probably we're at the points in our lives now, the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in terms of medical assistance and all that stuff, but um the truth of the matter is that, like we mentioned earlier in conversation, that the research and everything, uh speaking to the efficacy of these modalities, that research was done way back in the 50s and 60s. The government knows that mushrooms and everything are mind expanding, and they will promote, peace in your heart and all that kind of stuff. But what
Mm,
our government in particular did not want was a whole population of people who were asking questions like that.
mhm,
So that's why they were banned. That's why you got the DEA and all that other kind of stuff. Same thing with with the marijuana. We've all tracked the progress of that, legal process in the United States. And essentially what it comes down to is that they just weren't ready, to let us have access to it until such time they figured out how they were going to make the money off of it.
mm. So I guess that leads me to ask you, what made you start your nonprofit?
So yeah, with that, man, I expressed to you, those 3 or 4 years where I call that the dark ages or the lost years.
Yes, sir.
Um, During that time, man, I had got to the point where, just anything that it would have made me feel connected to something, I would have tried it because I was that far gone.
Mm,
And a friend of mine that I grew up with out in California, he was also a military vet, and we had stayed in touch over the years through the advent of Facebook and all that kind of stuff, of course. But we hadn't personally seen each other probably in a couple years. And at the height of my bullshit, you know, that I had going on at the height of all of that. Um, he just happened to call me one day because he had been observing, you know, he had saw, you know, Facebook and whatever else, you know, and we both had a pretty traumatic childhood. It was like when when things were shitty at my house, I go to his house, and when things were shitty at his house, he come to mine, or that kind of thing. You know, we were real
Yeah.
boys, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, look, man, who's this guy I'm looking at on the internet? You know, more or less, you know, like, okay, what's going on with you?" Is basically what the conversation was about.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I said, man, if bro would have called me the day before or the day after, he might have got cussed out. You know, what I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was just I was ready to hear it on that day. And on that day, he told me about plant medicine. He mentioned ayahuasca to me, and he told me he had just done it, and it helped him to cleanse all the stuff. Well, I won't say cleanse; it'll help him to reconcile. It started him on his healing journey to being able to put those things in perspective to help him be able to move forward. And he told me about it and invited me to come out to Phoenix, Arizona, to do ceremony. So I did. You know, I went out there, and the very first psychedelic or medicine ceremony that I ever participated in had to do with mushrooms. I took they gave me like 5 grams of mushrooms. You know, we did a ceremony in the evening. It was very spiritually guided, nice, comfortable space and everything. It wasn't like just taking some mushrooms and, you know, doing whatever. It was very guided and pointed, and it was very, very emotionally impactful, spiritually impactful. And man, I cried all night long, and I hadn't cried in probably 15 years, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then the very next morning, they served Bufo, which is the 5-MeO DMT, the Bufo alvarius medicine. It's the strongest psychedelic out there. They served that the next morning. When I had that experience after that, just the bliss, the divinity, the peace, and everything that fell over me in that experience, as soon as I came out of it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is what everybody out there needs, you know, especially my veteran brothers and sisters, and just folks in general. You know, tapping into your purpose and your true divinity, whether we realize it or not, that's why we're here. You know, we're not here to subscribe to all these systems and wear uniforms and go kill people over bullshit and agendas and all that. That's not why we're here. So when we tap back into our true soul purpose, everything changes. Because at the end of the day, healing is mind, body, and soul. And they don't have a fucking pill for that.
Mm.
You've got to do the work. And the
Yeah.
work can come from any number of different varieties. But for me, when I experienced that Bufo, I knew that that particular medicine right there was one that could change the world. And I set out to learn more about it. I mean, of course, the folks there in Phoenix were working with it, and they're good people, and I appreciate them so much for the introduction to the medicine. It changed my life. But when
Mm-hmm.
it came time to learn it, I didn't want to learn from them because it wasn't theirs to teach. Right. So I started looking around to see the most all the information I could about this particular medicine, and it led me to the Seri Comcac Nation down there in Mexico. I had no frame of reference for where that was, who they were, or anything else. And I'm like, okay, it's a random Indian tribe. Are they even going to talk to me? Right.
Mm.
So I reached out, man. I reached out down there to figure out what I could, you know, to get in contact with somebody. And another dude helped me and hooked me up with Luis Lopez. Luis is my medicine mentor that I ended up going down there and spending time with. And I went down there the very first time, and I spent 12 days with Luis. And I had called him. I finally got him on the phone, and he was like, "What do you want?" You know, just really like how he said, like, "What do you want?" And I was like, I was like,
I
well,
won't
well,
help.
shit.
Shit.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, shit, how you doing today? You know,
Right.
what do you want? but
I
but
want
you
some
know,
help, damn it.
yeah, you know, and he said, I told him, I said, well, I would like to come down and do some more work on my personal spirit, mind, and body, and everything else, and I would also like to learn more about this medicine. And he told me, he said, well, you come down here and do the work on yourself first. And however that goes, we'll talk about you learning. Okay. And I said, all right, deal. So I packed all my stuff in the car. I had, like I said, no frame of reference for where this place was. I took 2 weeks worth of shit, put it in my car, and hit the GPS and rolled out. And
Mm.
when I got down there to Mexico, Luis was standing there at the front gate of the reservation waiting for me. I didn't call him or anything. He was just already standing there. And I spent the next 12 days with him, and I think we must have did Bufo, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 times, during that 2 week span, just going deep, deep, deep within myself and
Mm.
scraping out all of the stuff, just learning the reasons for my darkness and depravity and all, just learning about me and transmuting and reformulating all that. Right.
So
So,
it was self-discovery.
yep. The first mission was pure self-discovery. But then while I was there, it came to me to, like my intention was to go and learn more about this medicine so that I could come back to the US and help people with it. But then while I was there, it came to me, it's like, well, you know what? Go back to the US for what? So that you can duck and dodge the police and play a bunch of political bullshit games while you're trying to help people? No thanks. What I'm going to do is just bring those veterans down here. And by doing that, the veterans showing up at the Indian reservation, the resources that they bring, it helps its immediate impact to that community. But then
Mm.
plus the healing and the things that those veterans are going to receive. I mean, it's a lifetime reciprocity. There's no price you can put on that.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, the veterans in my program, they don't pay to come here. We make sure that it's covered. If they got the commitment to come and we've got the funds to sponsor them, which we don't always have the funds, right? But when we do, if somebody really wants to be here who doesn't have the resources, he's coming. We're not doing this for money. There's a lot
Mm.
of folks out there. I'm not going to make any accusations or point any fingers or anything else, but if you look around this space, there's a lot of folks out there that are just making millions and whatever.
Yeah. Now, what's Bufo?
So Bufo alvarius is it is the secretion of the Sonoran desert toad. That toad exists only right there in the Sonoran desert, and it only comes out 3 times per year. So what the chemical compound that's in that venom is called 5-MeO-DMT. It's uh, dimethyltryptamine, right? So 5-MeO-DMT is the exact same thing that the human body produces in small doses. Your lungs can produce DMT. The pineal gland inside your brain also produces DMT, which allows us to go to dream at night. It allows us to enter the dream world. These are things that are 100% natural, right? So
Mm.
the Bufo alvarius has this venom that is the exact replica or the exact same as what's already inside of our bodies. So then when you take this particular medicine, the DMT, it's basically, for a lack of better terms, it's like having a direct injection of dream juice, right? So you'll go
Mm.
straight to the fifth dimension and beyond, right? You're in that dream world. And in that
Right.
space, that's where you reconnect to your true self, to your being, to who you truly are, the spiritual aspect of us and all of that, right? Now, I won't say that it just happens that easy and that quick, because that is a huge undertaking, right? When you have an experience like that, you're going to experience the separation from body and your true self, and it feels like you're dying, and essentially you are. Right?
Mm.
It's people. There's a lot of people that throw around the term ego death. Um, I don't particularly like that term. I don't consider it to be ego death. I consider it to be ego dissolution, in so much as you break down that ego and then build it back up to where it serves you. Because a lot of us are running on ego programs that aren't in alignment with us. And when I say that, I mean that the ego is there to protect us. It's always going to be there. You can't kill it and make it go away. You just have to reformulate it to where it's like a lot of, to make it real simple, it's like people are running around out here trying to solve problems on dial-up when we're already on Windows 11. You know what I mean?
Gotta play catch up.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I know you
Yeah.
mentioned another uh medicine called ayahuasca.
Yes.
What's ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca is another DMT rooted medicine, but that's more prevalent down like in South America, Colombia and in those places there. Um, the ayahuasca journey is different than Bufo. When you do Bufo, like I said, it's a very immediate impact type of thing, and that particular journey can last anywhere from 5 minutes to 15, 20 minutes, or and then the recovery time sometimes can be longer or shorter. But with the
Mhm.
ayahuasca, that is a medicine that's more ceremonial, and it's like an all night long process. You drink the medicine, you drink the medicine, and it runs through your body and creates a physical purge. And then also, it's also going to create a connection that's going to help you to really visualize, understand, and there's even dialogue in there too for some people, right? You can ask questions about life and everything else, right? But
Oh,
it's,
really?
yeah, it can help you to really rationalize and understand, some of the traumatic things that have happened in life, and put some meaning to any event in life. It doesn't have to just be trauma. The happy stuff
Yeah.
comes up in there too, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's a very, very intense thing, but it's so healing at the same time. And this particular medicine has been used by the indigenous communities in South America for literally thousands of years.
Mm.
Yeah, we have to put that in perspective too. I mean, when we think about the Western medicine system, how old is it? It's only 200 years old.
Yeah.
And I
Two,
think that we
three.
can
Yeah.
all agree that people have been here for more than 200 years, right? So
Yeah.
before we came up with a Western medicine system that was filled with pharmaceuticals, what the hell were people doing? They were
Living
healing
off the land.
naturally, right?
Off the land. Yeah.
Exactly. So now tell me why that's villainized.
Because they're not
Okay.
benefiting from
Thank you. Right. So there we
it.
go. So,
Yep.
at the end of the day, man, like I said, when you get to this point and stage, you just realize, okay, well, um, we can keep doing what we've been doing and keep getting what we've been getting, or you can try something else, right? To dress that up a little bit, what's the definition of insanity, right? To keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Different result.
And that's what's happening in the mental health industry in the United States.
Mm. Mm. And the sad thing is, we know what insanity is. We just choose to follow the yellow brick road down to
Absolutely.
oblivion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because, these things that I'm talking about now, like mushrooms and everything else, what happens when you tell the average person about that? Oh, that's some old hippie shit, man.
That's some Black Panther type shit, bro.
Yeah, like, okay, man. Right? Because what I'm not going to do anymore is argue with anybody.
You do?
I don't have the time, the capacity, nor the desire. When I
Yeah.
first started this thing, I was like, oh, man, you're crazy. What do you mean I'm crazy? You're crazy. Nah, man, I get it. Not everybody's supposed to get it. And
Mm.
that starts speaking to some of the spiritual context of all this, right? We have to understand that some people here are not going to evolve in this particular iteration. But things haven't happened for the fruition of facts and all that to come to them in a fashion that makes them want to organize some change. So it's very difficult too, because especially when you start on your own personal healing journey and things start changing for you, you automatically start looking at things around you and the people, situations, and everything else a lot differently, right? So then you realize that this journey that I'm on, to my own personal purpose, divinity, and spiritual self, not everybody's going to do that. And
Mm.
some of the people you love the most are certainly not going to do it. So that's where it gets tough.
Now, is this legal in the U.S. The bufo and the ayahuasca?
No, in the United States, no.
Okay.
In the United States, the only way you can do this is by having a church, or you have to appeal to the Religious Freedoms Act, which allows the Native Americans to be able to use their medicines and everything on reservations and whatever else. You have to file for a church and ask for permission to be able to utilize these sacred medicines that come from the earth.
Mm.
So that's why I formed the Arizona Warrior Assembly up in Arizona, so that it can give us the best possible legal protection if we do anything up there. Because, like I said, the majority of the stuff that I do is out of the country. Because in my mind, it's a lot more. Um, I want to be careful how I say this, as to not, offend anybody else. But at the end of the day, if you want to have an indigenous medicine experience, uh, you might have to start by having some indigenous people present. Enough said.
Yeah. Yeah. It will make sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, do you have any followers?
Yeah. We've got quite a few followers. I mean, I've been at this now, down here in Mexico for the last, we'll say 3 years, because like the first year I was here just, uh, soaking it all in and trying to figure out how I was going to do it, and
Yeah.
working with the Comcac Nation there on the reservation and serving people from all over the world. People come there from everywhere to have this experience. So when I first started, I thought that I was going to do Healing Frontline Heroes as a nonprofit. But then when I started going down that road, I saw how convoluted and ridiculous that was, you know, and all that bean counting and bullshit. And it's like, okay, maybe that's not the route. So then I had to think about how I could do this sustainably. Because when I first started, what I would do, I was just reaching out to the spiritual community in Arizona and surrounding areas. And I would offer the opportunity for a couple of people to come down and pay for this experience. And then when they would come, I would invite like 2 veterans to come for free. So then it was like the veterans coming for free was based on whether or not these people showed up. So I knew I had to figure out a better way to sustain that, because a couple times I had, you know, 3 or 4 people that say, yeah, we're coming down together and we're going to pay X amount. And I was like, okay, perfect. I can bring 2 veterans for that, right? And then come time to go, and then no, we're not going to go. We're not going to go. You know, so I had to figure out a way to really make it sustainable, but at the same time realizing that I don't want to get too deep into this whole game that everybody's playing, all the gatekeeping and everything else is going on with the money in the United States. There's any number of veteran organizations out there that that are collecting money to send people these type of things, but just like anything else, if you're not clicked up with the people in charge of the money, you ain't gonna get none. They're gonna send the people to all their, you know, all their little buddies and their little,
Yeah.
you know, $1 million retreats and all that.
Yeah.
You know, that it's a
Right.
game that I didn't really want to play, and I still don't. But I
Mhm.
understand now that you have to, but there's a way to do it and still remain intact and not have to compromise the integrity of what you're doing. And you know, again, with all these systems and everything that we're talking about that we have such resentment for, um, how can you expect, you know, for those to be the source of your success? You can't. So I figured I would start as long as I could building organically, because
Mhm.
everything that I've done up to this point has had zero formal funding. Zero. I have not asked for grant the first. I haven't done anything like that. But now I have structured myself to where we can, and we're coming.
Mm. Claim it, brother. Claim it. Claim it, man.
Yeah.
Man, uh, how can people reach you, Michael?
Yes. Okay. So we're on all the social medias. We got Healing Frontline Heroes is the LLC. We've got them on Facebook and on Instagram. We've also got a website, you know, healingfrontlineheroes.com. We've also got the Arizona Warrior Assembly. The website is out there. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. My 2 other projects. One project is called Motaverse, and Motaverse is a conscious apparel, you know, like a T-shirt type of line that goes along with the retreats and everything else that we're putting out there. So Motaverse will also have a retreat center down in St. Vincent. That's where we're doing the Ganja retreat.
This
And then in
multiverse? Multiverse?
Mota,
Spell that.
Mota. Now,
Okay.
mota is slang for weed in Spanish.
Okay.
All right.
Gotta get
Metaverse,
in it.
metaverse.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that. I
So,
like that.
and then additionally, we've the shirt that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see this, Bufal Virus Sonora. That's the logo for our retreat center down
Okay.
in Sonora. We've had a very generous investor from Texas. His name is Nick Fox. He runs an organization there called Power of One. And Nick came down and saw us last year and believed in what we were doing, and gave us some money to be able to build out a retreat center there in Sonora. So that's currently under construction right now. We've already completed one of the buildings. We're getting ready to knock down another one, and we're going to have a full service retreat center right there in Sonora,
Mm.
in addition to everything else that we've got going on. So the end product is the retreat center in Sonora. We've got 2 retreats that we host in Colombia. One is Ayurveda and the other one is ayahuasca. And then of course in St. Vincent will be the Ganja retreat. So that's what we're looking at. And like I said, everything is happening out of the country. Why? Because I don't want the US telling me shit.
Yeah. And it's best to keep it that way.
Yes. Y'all just,
Because
just keep sending my little VA check. That's all I need from y'all. We're good.
Hey, and
That's
you
where
earned
I'm at
that.
with it, man. Like for real, that's where I'm at with it. Like I said, I've been out here and I realized, in the transition of all this thing, when I walked away from my federal job at the VA, I was making probably $100 some thousand a year, and just couldn't do it anymore. It just got to the point where it was, making me physically ill to walk up in there and act like the shit was right or act like anything that we were doing there. Now, I'm not going to say that the whole place is just raggedy and nobody gets any good service or all that, because that's not true. But what I'm saying is that the overall results that you can expect from your local VA are nothing to write about.
Last question. What would your message be to somebody who wants to join the military?
Well, talking about like right now, somebody's talking about joining the military.
Now? Yeah.
At the end of the day, man, like I said earlier, there's people here whose destinies and the lessons they have to learn and the things they have to go through, to have, a culmination of their life. I wouldn't discourage anybody. I would just tell them to really, really see if that's what's in alignment for you and to make an informed decision. And part of an informed decision is having access to knowledge that we know that stays hidden, right? So it's like, again, for me, the military operations and stuff that I saw and was a part of, I get it. But then when I got back home and started looking up, the backstories and all this other kind of stuff and understanding that, you know, uh, like what they did to Gaddafi and Saddam and
Mm,
Noriega and all these different people all
mm,
around I was in Panama, bro. I showed up in Panama.
mm,
I was there. I was there 5 years. This was
mm.
post invasion. I showed up in Panama in '92, right? But at that time, Pablo Escobar was still alive over in Colombia. So when I showed up in Panama in the early '90s, still a young soldier, not really, understanding everything how it was moving.
All right.
I had the opportunity, through my through the drug suppression unit, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of Panamanians, who were actually part of the Panamanian Defense Force under Noriega, and I got to hear the perspective of the Panamanian people as to what happened there for real, based on actual events and history from their perspective, not from what we saw in the news in the U.S. of how Manuel Noriega was a danger to the world and everything else. No, he wasn't. That man
Mm,
was no danger to, and yes, of course, he was, involved in some stuff. But at the end of the day, who put him in power there? That was us. We did that. And everybody in Panama knew that. Everybody in Panama also knew that the CIA had killed Omar Torrijos so that Noriega could be in charge. So the times when Noriega was in charge and doing our bidding and listening to us and saying he would, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, he was
mm,
fine. But as soon as he started talking to the folks around him, namely Pablo Escobar and all that, Pablo was like, look, bro, I
mm.
know the Americans set you up well. I know they're giving you X amount of millions or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
let's me and you roll. Whatever that millions that they look like are giving you, we can make that look like nothing. So then when Noriega got to the point where the US couldn't control him anymore,
Mm. And
here
that's why
we
they,
come.
yeah, yeah,
And that same story is true all around the world. I don't care where you tell it at.
yeah. Saddam
I mean,
Hussein,
yeah,
all
look
of
at Gaddafi. The reason they killed
them.
Gaddafi was because he was coming up with a monetary system that was going to usurp the World Bank.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on, but even if I did, I still wouldn't be lying.
Just know what you're
Yeah.
getting into.
Yeah, that would be the message. That's what I would tell somebody is to do your research,
Hmm.
understand, that what you think you're getting ready to go sign up for and fight
Mm,
for is not the American. You're not fighting for the American way. You're
mm,
not.
mm,
When you're over there in the Middle East, there's people over there in Afghanistan that don't give a shit about capitalism. They don't give a damn about going and get a freaking Starbucks coffee. They don't care. But who are we to force those values on them? But that's just what we do. And we won't even get into the why, and who we take our orders from. We won't even get into that. But I will say that in the Middle East, um, the enemies that Israel has identified as enemies, um, are they really our enemies? Or are we just obligated to back up what we put in place back in 1948?
mm, mm.
Whole
The
different
enemy of my
conversation.
enemy. It's the enemy of my enemy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The point is that we built them too, because there was no Israel prior to 1948.
Correct.
We did
Correct.
that.
Correct.
So therefore, you're obligated to take care of your baby.
Yeah. or the
So
baby's
what,
going to
what
sleep
do
crying.
you, so the man, I just thought of something, sounds kind of funny. It seemed like the damn United States citizens and everybody else in our country been paying child support since 1948 for Israel. Anyway,
Man, because
this is the part
hey,
where this is the part where I'm going to lose some people
mm,
because again, truth,
yeah,
which goes back to the question that you asked. If somebody wants to serve right now, fine, go ahead, knock it out, but know the truth before you do it. That's all.
and the truth is oftentimes not what your version of what truth is,
No, I mean, there's,
because you're still clouded. You know, your judgment's
right.
still clouded. But
Yes,
once you get the sleep out your eyes and see what's really going on, that's truth.
right.
You
And to
can't run
that
from
point,
that.
I'll close with this. To that point, think about these numbers, brother.
Mhm.
In the 20-year conflict over there in the Middle East, we lost like 7,700 soldiers, something like that, soldiers, airmen, and everybody else.
Mhm.
Since then, we've lost almost 30,000 to suicide. So you tell me what's going on. Those guys can't reconcile with what they went and did.
That part.
There you
That
go.
part. They're still fighting these demons, man.
Like I said, we can have tough conversations, or we can sit up, and put our nice little voices. Well, what do you think the origin of that problem is? We can do that if you want to, or we can just tell it what the fuck it is.
What the fuck it is, man. Tell the
Yes,
truth
sir.
and shame the devil, as they say.
Yes, sir.
Michael Manion, man. It's a pleasure to have you on, my brother. I really do appreciate it, man. I know you're down there in Savannah hanging out with your son and all that good stuff, man. So, man, yeah. Much love to you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Much love to you and yours. Tell the wife hello. Take care of your family up there, man. And hey, whenever you're ready to come see us, you know where I'm at.
Much love and respect to you, brother.
You got it, brother. Thank you, man.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.